Hey everybody, Derek here to bring another video for The Walking Dead Season 6. And what this video is going to be doing is giving my predictions for Daryl for the upcoming last half of Season 6. We kind of noticed that Daryl didn't really have as much of a prominent role in the first half of Season 6. You know, most of the time he was just moving walkers with his motorcycle. Not really too much going on with him. But I think that is going to change with the new season coming up. And I'm really excited for what they have to offer for him. And I'm going to give some predictions based on some rumors that I've heard from the little bit from the comics and from the TV show as well. If you are not caught up and you do not want to be spoiled in any way, then exit the video now because there are going to be a lot of spoilers in this video. So last chance, you don't want to be spoiled, exit now, because otherwise you will be spoiled. Okay. So, we know, just from watching, seeing how everybody, reacts to Daryl, that Daryl has been one of the most popular, interesting characters on the show. And again, like I said, most of the time in Season 6, his role was very restricted. He spent most of it driving his bike and leading walkers away from the quarry. But his main story, the thing that they really focused on with him, was episode 6, Always Accountable. And of course, in that episode, Daryl ran into Dwight, Sherry, and Tina, three individuals who kidnapped him, held him hostage at gunpoint, thinking that he was a member of the Saviors, one of Negan's group, because that's where the three of them had run away from and were fleeing from the Saviors who were tracking them down. Daryl ends up escaping, but he discovers insulin inside the pack that he took and realizes that Tina is a diabetic and needs insulin. So Daryl goes back, later saves them from the Saviors. Tina unfortunately ends up dying from walkers biting her. And basically Dwight and Sherry are left. Daryl asks them the three questions. He likes their answers, gives them a chance to come back. And what do? Dwight betrays him. He pulls a gun on Daryl, tells him he's taken the bite, and he takes Daryl's crossbow as well. And he and Sherry leave on the bite. This, of course, definitely upsets Daryl. It shows that Daryl was wrong about Dwight and Sherry, I guess. I mean, Dwight was mostly the one that took the lead on the action. Not gonna excuse Sherry from this, but we see Dwight being the one that takes most of the action, so that's why I focus more on him. And Daryl was wrong about them. He trusted them. He thought that they were good people. He thought that, they were worthy of coming back, and they ended up betraying him. And I think that is something that is definitely going to affect Daryl greatly as we move into the second part of Season 6. When we look back on Daryl's character, a lot of the themes that surround him have to do with trust issues and avoiding making close relationships because of the way that his life has been. His mom died from a cigarette burning down her house. We have his dad, who abused him physically. And we have Merle, who, tried to be there but was in and out of juvenile hall. So Daryl really led a solitary life, fending for himself, never really relied on anybody. And, once the zombie apocalypse hits, Merle is really the only person that he can trust. And when he loses Merle, he struggles to find trust with Rick and the group. And it takes him over 2 seasons to truly trust them and rely on them. And then, of course, we have Season 3 where, his relationship with Merle and the group became a conflict. Who could he trust better? His brother, his blood, or his group, the people that he has fought with. And we saw how much of a conflict that was. So trust is really a big thing with Daryl. He's had trust issues in the past, and he's developed them as time has gone on. And now we also see that now that he has built that trust with his group, we see how much he struggles with losing the people that he comes to care about. That is something that does affect Daryl. He cared about finding Sophia. He thought about, a young girl in the woods lost, kind of like how he was as a child. He told the story to Andrea. And then, of course, he finds Sophia dead in the barn. We get to season 4. Daryl's a leader at the prison. He trusts his prison group. He cares about them. He's, grown into this position. And when you remember when Zach dies, he tells Beth, I'm tired of losing people. And then we lose the prison, and Daryl reverts back because of the pain that he felt. He tries to, shun Beth. He doesn't want to, talk about it, get involved, get emotionally, conflicted again. But Beth helps to guide him back a little bit. We get to season 5. Daryl wants to find Beth. He's passionate about finding Beth. Same thing like with Sophia. And then Beth dies. But we do see at times as well where, when a new opportunity comes, Daryl kind of gets a little bit more hopeful, if you will. It takes time for him to get comfortable, but he does find hope again, and I think that we see that with Noah. We see that he has the ability to find good people. While it wasn't a perfect thing, at first he saved Noah and then was willing to leave him to die, and it was, Carol that had to really convince Daryl to save Noah, but he did. And, we get to Alexandria, and again, after losing Beth, Daryl reverts back to this, isolated, fending for himself, going off by himself. And now he's a recruiter for Alexandria. Aaron tells him, you know the difference between a good person and a bad person. And Daryl is passionate about wanting to find and help people. He brings back Morgan, definitely something that he was happy about. He wanted to find that guy in the red poncho. We've seen a big development with Daryl, but we do find that when he runs into these situations and his trust is, betrayed, if you will, it really does hurt Daryl, and it kind of, in a sense, makes him revert back to this, well, I've been burned and I don't want to, I made myself vulnerable. That was my mistake. And now, I need to go back to the way that I know how to survive and how I know not to get hurt. And I think that's why he does that. And I think that Dwight really is the next nail in the coffin for him. It's this, I think that Daryl will absolutely question his trust in other people. Granted, when he gains trust and when he builds trust with people he already trusts, then I think that he knows how to manage that. It's just new relationships. And, I think that this experience really will convince Daryl not to go out and recruit anymore. I think that this is going to be the thing that really makes Daryl come back and say, yeah, you were right, Rick. Because if you remember back in the season 6 premiere, first time again, Rick was adamant, don't go back out there. Did you see the wolves? You heard about the wolves, you heard about this. And Daryl said, no, we're only going to become stronger if we bring more people back. And Daryl was adamant about that. But now I get the feeling that after running into Dwight and running into the Saviors and seeing what the wolves did to the community when he gets back, I think that's going to be it for Daryl. I really think that he's going to not want to recruit, and him and Rick are going to have similar positions on that. And of course, you really have to wonder, what does the future hold for Daryl? And, again, I think that really Daryl is going to be struggling to find trust in people again. I think he's really going to be, focusing his efforts on helping Alexandria. But I think that some things coming up in the story may involve him. And one of those things, I think, is Jesus Monroe. If you're not familiar with Jesus from the comics, Jesus is a member of the Hilltop Colony. He wears a hat, he has a beard, he wears a coat, and he ends up running into Rick's group while he was out wandering around, and he ends up fighting with a couple of the members of the group because Jesus is very, agile. He's able to, do like these karate moves, if you want to call them that. He can literally kill walkers with his bare hands or his legs. He's very resourceful. And, they end up taking him prisoner and asking him, where does he come from? What does he want? And he tells them about the hilltop. Well, even though Daryl is not in the comic books, I think he may be involved with this storyline. I think that we may actually see Daryl taking a little bit of a lead on Jesus. I think that he's going to be a voice of, not trusting Jesus. That maybe different people might be thinking different things when Jesus comes into the story. And I would not be surprised if Daryl tells Rick, no, don't trust him. He's probably one of those saviors. He's probably one of those bad people. We shouldn't trust him. We shouldn't go anywhere with him. We shouldn't put our people in danger. And I think that he might feel that way. I think that based on what has happened to him out there, I don't think he's going to want to trust anybody. So, we may see him being the one that interrogates Jesus. We saw back in the season 2 when he interrogated Randall, we see that Daryl, has the ability to do these kind of actions. And I would not be surprised if he is the one that takes the lead. It also would not surprise me if Daryl is the one that finds Jesus in the story. I would not be surprised if maybe Daryl's going out for some other reason. Maybe Jesus comes upon the community. I don't really know how he's going to be introduced because there could be a lot of different things going on. They may end up having to go out on scavenging missions to get more food, to get more supplies. So it may be during one of them, those missions that they run into him. There's a lot of different possibilities for how they could run into him, but I would not be surprised if it is Daryl that runs into Jesus rather than some other characters. But we'll see. But I think that his trust will definitely be something that he struggles with. But, overall, I think with Daryl, I think things are going to get worse before they get better for him. And I think that a lot of that is going to have to do with Dwight. Because if you remember from the prologue, we saw that the Saviors confront Daryl, Abraham, and Sasha on the road. And they just released another promo where one of the Saviors says, normally we just shoot somebody in order to introduce ourselves. If you go on YouTube on AMC, the AMC channel, you can see this. They've added a new promo, which really leads me again, and from my predictions before, to believe that there's going to be a confrontation between the Saviors and Daryl, Sasha, and Abraham. And I think that some of the Saviors are going to get killed. And that is going to be the first armed conflict with the Saviors that will push this story forward. Because obviously, I don't think this is the last time they're going to run into Dwight. And I don't think that this is the last time they're going to see the Saviors. And now that they have killed some of them, which I think they will, I think that they're going to want to find Daryl and Sasha and Abraham and the rest of the group. And what I think might happen is, I think that Daryl may go out on a mission, again, for the community, maybe, but I think that at some point, he's going to be venturing outside the walls of Alexandria and possibly go with other people. And I think that what's going to happen is Dwight is going to kill somebody with Daryl's crossbow. I'm going to share a little more insight into that in another video. But in the comic books, while the war is, in the starting phases before we meet Negan, Dwight ends up killing Abraham with his crossbow. And he used a crossbow, and of course we know that Daryl's not in the comics. But I think that that's going to happen. Because there are a lot of signs of this coming up, plus rumors that I have heard. I have heard that one of the last episodes of the season is going to involve Daryl trying to chase down Dwight. That he's hunting for him, and that at some point he shoots one of his bows into a tree, and that it almost hits Rosita in the head. And then Glenn and Rosita and Michonne, I've heard, are basically going to confront Daryl in the woods, and Daryl's going to say something along the lines of, I'm going to do what I should have done a long time ago for her. So that's the rumor I've heard. Whether that's going to happen for sure or not, I'm not sure. But, I think that Dwight, more likely than not, is going to use Daryl's crossbow to kill someone in Alexandria. And from my predictions, I think it's going to be Tara. And I think that when this happens, or if this happens, Daryl's obviously going to flip out. And I think that he will want to hunt Dwight down, and I think that this may lead to another confrontation with the Saviors that leads up to the finale, with Negan coming into the show. And I think that that's part of what's going to happen. I think that, again, going back to that moment when Daryl trusted Dwight, and I think that that's really going to be something that really affects Daryl. Because if Daryl would have just left and not gone back, he had been able to get keep his crossbow, he'd have been able to get on his bike and ride away. And to heck with whatever happened to them. And that's the tough thing about sometimes doing the quote-unquote right thing in the zombie apocalypse, is that there are consequences at times. And, I think that with Daryl, I think we're going to see him really come to regret that decision. While he did do something very great and nice, and I really think that that shows how much Daryl has made progress on the show, unfortunately, I think that good deed, if you will, is going to end up getting somebody killed. And I think that Daryl is going to be very, very upset and wrecked with guilt over it when Dwight ends up coming back into the story and potentially killing somebody. And I think that's going to lead Daryl to chase Dwight down and kill him, or at least try to. We don't know if he'll be successful. But I think that that's going to make sense. Daryl's kind of wishing that he would have just, left them in the woods. Because, hey, they did take him hostage. They did point a gun at his head. They did threaten to kill him. I wouldn't blame Daryl for leaving them behind. And I think that's something that will hurt him and something that he's going to struggle with. So let me know what you think. Do you think that this is going to be some things that happen with Daryl? Do you see something else happening? Let me know. Feel free to subscribe. I do have more videos coming. And if you have any suggestions for future videos that you would like to see, don't be afraid to suggest them. Have a wonderful evening, and thank you very much for watching.